Chapter 19, Disconnection, Reconciliation and Ascension. As I mentioned in the introduction to this book, delivery of the final chapter of The Fall was challenged by certain thought forms and discarnate negative forces whose sole intention was to halt delivery of the vitally important information it contains and delay the printing of this title. These attempts at disruption resulted in me initially being pulled out of trance several times. Not a pleasant experience, I can assure you. And the four of us having to regroup and pray hard in order to raise, in tandem with the spiritual team that works around us and around Joseph, the available energy levels so that we could reconnect and allow him to successfully deliver the concluding chapter of The Fall. As I read this chapter, I will chronicle the sequence of events as we sought to identify and combat this psychic attack. And I have included these as I feel the delicate nature of transcommunication and the very real threat posed by negative spiritual energies can be better illustrated and understood by allowing you, the listener, to sit in not only on the delivery of Joseph's message, but also on the highly unusual happenings that took place during this last session. Here's Joseph. Reconciliation. The aim of this book is to reconcile you with your true self, with your true family, with your true potential, and to reconcile with the rest of the creative universe this area of distorted matter or vibration we have called the fall in the preceding chapters. I would like you to imagine for a moment what it is like to have a member of your family at a distance from you. A member of your family that you love dearly and completely, but cannot reach, cannot influence, cannot communicate with, and, most of all, cannot welcome back into your home. That is what it is like for us, and that is what it is like for the rest of the angelic host who are aware of the shift of being. Now at this point, there was an unexpected pause and a break in the trance connection. And I said, "I'll have to start again, I'm sorry." There then followed a 2-minute silence whilst Joseph attempted to re-establish the link and take me back into a trance state. It seems appropriate that the communication today, with regard to the last chapter, begins with disconnection. Disconnection is the problem. Disconnection is what you are experiencing on earth at the moment and have experienced since the time of the fall. You are disconnected. You are disconnected from your true self. You are disconnected from your true family. And you are disconnected from your essence and from your ability to create and uncreate correctly. So, there has been a disconnection since you decided to invest in the experiment that you were advised not to invest in. The disconnection at the moment is becoming worse because each of you, no matter how spiritually minded or materially minded you appear to be, is in truth constantly seeking to reconnect to the God within, and to reconnect to the angelic family that surrounds you, but which you cannot sense. You are seeking to reconnect the creative potential within you with the rest of creation, and to reharmonize and reconcile your vibration with the vibration of the rest of the universe. Unfortunately, at the moment, most of the people on earth are translating that sense of disconnection into a need for greater materialism and a greater establishment of a personal power base on earth. And, as a result of that, you are strengthening the disconnection. You are cementing together those distorted molecules into a non-cohesive whole, which you are then immersing yourself into, believing that it will bring you happiness, that it will bring you fulfillment, and that it will bring you the missing quotient or missing aspect of yourselves that you yearn for so much. In the past, this need to reconnect and mistakenly reinvest your energies into the effects of the fall has created disaster, resulting in cataclysm and in the expulsion of the spiritual form from the earth plane until the earth plane could rest for a sufficient time to re-nurture a physical. And again here there was a pause. Until the earth plane and the divas working together could. And here there was a long pause. Create a suitable physical shell to house the spirit being or the angel that you truly are. A pause of some 5 minutes followed as the connection was broken and I came out of trance again. And I said, "There's something terribly wrong this morning." And Jane suggested that we should perhaps sit another day. And I communicated with Joseph clairvoyantly. And I knew that he wanted me to stand up, and so I stood up and once more was taken into a trance state. I apologize for the break in transmission and for the difficulties we have had this morning. It is not always possible to create the connection we need in order to communicate. The problem, as always, comes from your side of life and will be made apparent later. Let me recap and let me attempt to lay out the format of this final chapter. In it, I want to talk about disconnection. And I want to ask you, the listener, to consider the fact that millennia ago, you were an angelic being living in a blissful society, existing to create, creating bliss, entering into that bliss, and, through experiencing that bliss, creating greater bliss for the rest of the angelic host and for the Godhead. You then entered into an agreement with the rest of the angelic children to experiment with a different way of creating, believing that that different way was advantageous to yourselves, to the rest of the angelic host, and to the divine. You were advised against that move, but, because of free will, you decided that it was still the right thing to do. You moved into that frame of spiritual mind, from one microsecond to the next microsecond, and as a result of that you encased yourself within an area of matter that does not react as matter reacts within the rest of the physical universe. You have been suffering because of that disconnection from God and from the rest of your angelic family ever since. Not only have you been suffering, you have been working within a pattern that brings itself to a point of destruction. You have done it at least twice that I can see looking back in the akashic records of this earth. I know that it has happened more than twice, but I am not privy to that information and am not allowed to see back further than that point. The point of this book is to remind you of who you are, but also to say to you, you are about to turn the wheel full circle again into that point of destruction. You are about to face destruction on a physical level again. You are about to face the point where your physical vehicle is taken away from you, and you enter into a state of stasis, until such time as the devas and the earth plane, working together, can evolve a form that is of sufficient dexterity and flexibility to allow you to enter into it, to experience the pattern of seeking personal power and materiality again, until you shake yourself out of it and return in full consciousness to the angelic host that you are a part of. You are disconnected, and it is as though someone has pulled the plug on your creative abilities, on your creative consciousness, and on your true identity. You are a pale shadow as you exist on earth, of what you truly are and of what you are capable of. And your society is a pale shadow of society on a spiritual level of angelic society. You know that you are disconnected. As you listen to these words, feel them in your heart. You know that you are disconnected. Every person on earth knows, at his or her spiritual core, that they are disconnected from the Godhead and disconnected from the angelic host. They feel a need for something more. A need for something more that they express on earth as a want for a better relationship, a want for a better house, a want for more finances. Here, once again, there was a pause. Always an investment in physical matter. This will solve the problem. But it won't, because the investment you need is a reinvestment into your angelic family. A further pause here, as the connection was severed, and I was taken yet again out of trance. And I said, "What on earth is wrong? What on earth is wrong?" And Jane suggested that we should perhaps sit on another day. And I replied, "We're never going to get it finished. Why is this happening? What the hell is wrong?" What is causing this? What is blocking it? I have no idea. And then I paused and I asked for a glass of water, and I began to pray. What do you want us to do, Father? I can't carry on unless I get a connection, can I? First of all, PG, I was making a reference here to the guide we nickname the Persian gentleman, or whoever is there, will you please surround this room with protection? If you want us to do this, please surround this room with protection. And whatever there is in here that shouldn't be in here, will you take it out? Again, there was a pause, and Joseph came back in. It should be noted at the end of this final chapter of the book that there was an attempt by the dark creative mind, the creative mind of the... Another pause, and our connection was broken one last time. At this point I was very tired and frustrated, and I addressed Joseph clairvoyantly. It's useless. It can't happen. Sorry, I can't do this if you don't come closer. Sorry, I can't do it. You have to clear things, or I can't do it otherwise. I addressed the group as we waited for the atmosphere to be purged of its negative elements, and I suggested that we make a drink. So we adjourned for a half-hour tea break, after which I entered a trance state, and this time Joseph was able to take me over, maintain control, and successfully deliver and conclude the final chapter. Here's Joseph. If I took away your possessions, if I took away your job, and if I took away your societal framework, where would you be? What would you be? If I took away your physical body, where would you be? What would you be? If I took you out of the earth plane, so far away that you could not remember your day-to-day life, where would you be? What would you be? You would be who you were. You would be what you were. You would be the angelic being that you once were and still are before the journey, before the mistake, before the investment in physical matter. You are surrounded at all times on the physical plane by interference, by the collective head consciousness of man. That collective head consciousness is sentient, as we have said so many times, and that collective head consciousness seeks to immerse you constantly in the illusion of the earth plane that you created so long ago, in order that you are reliant on it and it is reliant on you. It is a symbiotic relationship that traps you, imprisons you, stifles you creatively, and stops you being who you once were and who you still are within the shell of physical matter. At the time of the fall, when you invested your creative abilities in the experiment, and when you believed in that experiment to such an extent that you created its distorted view of reality around you, you disconnected yourself willingly and consciously from the God within, from your angelic family and from your true creative abilities. And you invested all that you are in the maintenance of the illusion you find yourself in now. It is time to let go. Not to let go of the earthly life, not to let go of the earth plane as it truly is, but to let go of your subconscious 100% belief that you were right in investing in the experiment. That is all that separates you from the blissful, angelic life you once led. It is time to let go. But instead of letting go, the greater percentage of the angelic children on earth still believe subconsciously that the experiment is correct, that they were and are right to invest their creative abilities and consciousness in it. All creative projections are a cycle. All creative projections start at the point of investing desire of form into them, and then they have to be concluded at some stage and taken back into the nothingness, so that you can create further illusions. The trend on the earth plane, even though it is encased in heavy matter, is exactly the same. It is a creative cycle, but unfortunately, it is a distorted creative cycle that cannot break out of itself and cannot conclude itself. It can neither create further, nor can it destroy itself and put itself away so that further creative cycles can be put into operation. As a result of this, the distorted creative cycle that is the bubble of the fall eventually brings itself round to a point where it attempts to eliminate itself and attempts to put itself back into the null thing. Unfortunately, this has the result of collapsing civilization. It has happened at least twice before. It has happened more than twice. And I do have knowledge here that I am not allowed to share with you that goes back beyond the boundary of that first total disruption of civilization. Suffice it to say that at least twice in your cycle, in other words, in the cycle that has involved civilization and physicality as it is at the moment, you have destroyed your physical vehicles twice. You have taken yourselves to the point where civilization has been wiped off the face of the earth so that the earth plane can regenerate itself, and the divas that create the natural backdrop of the earth plane can, through evolution of form over millennia, as you understand time, bring forth a suitable physical shell to house you again, so that, once again, you can reinvest yourself into the distorted illusion of the fall and play out the same scenario. What is the point of that? Why would that happen? It happens because your faith in the initial experiment, on a soul level and on an angelic level, is so strong that you pull yourself back into its effects. In other words, there is a stubbornness with the angelic children who were involved in the fall. At the point of investing in the fall, there was 100% belief that the effects of the fall would be beneficial to the whole angelic host and to the Godhead. That belief, at the moment you immersed yourself in distorted physical matter, was the strongest element of your soul and of your remaining angelic memory. And that is what you are constantly calling upon as you reinvest yourself into physical matter. In other words, that memory of the point of the fall, when, with much excitement and enthusiasm, you instigated the change in physical matter that resulted in the illusion you see around you and through you now, is the only memory you are able to draw on angelically, unless you consciously, through the heart-mind, seek out the Godhead and your true spiritual inheritance and memory. So your initial investment in the fall is something you hold on to subconsciously and is something you know is angelic. It is therefore, at subconscious level, your only connection, in many cases, with the paranormal, with the spiritual, and with something that appears to be beyond the earth plane. So you hang on to it, and hang on to it, and hang on to it, not realizing that it is only a fraction of what you are, and that you are hanging on to a glimmer of your full angelic potential. You, therefore, reinvest in it, reinvest in it, reinvest in it, and turn the great wheel of creative cycle to the point where you solidify the matter around yourselves and within yourselves to such an extent that it cannot sustain a spiritual form within it and has to be swept away and reorganized. If you were operating as part of the angelic host that is without the earth plane, in other words, the angelic host that was not involved in the fall, you would simply bring forth a dream into a reality. You would step into that reality. You would experience, understand, and examine the consequences of the reality you have created, and then you would put away the reality and step back into the consciousness of the angelic host, knowing full well that the reality you have just created and destroyed was an illusion for your benefit. What has happened here on earth, because of the fall, is that you do not realize you have created a reality you can step through and disintegrate. The molecules of the reality you have created as a result of the fall are imprinted with that willpower for the effects of the fall to succeed on behalf of the Godhead, as an honoring of the Godhead, as a treasure that you are bringing back to the Godhead, and as a celebration and a worshipping of the Godhead. So you retain that soul memory of this being a project in honor of the Godhead, but you do not retain that momentary realization at the point of investing in the fall that it was wrong. That matter in the way you have altered it does not harmonize with the rest of creation, does not harmonize correctly with the Godhead, and does not harmonize correctly with the rest of the angelic host. Therefore, you cannot draw on energies using the head mind that are beyond the bubble of the fall. You draw solely on the available energy within the physical matter of the fall. And that available energy can sustain you in physical form time and again for millennia. But eventually it runs out. If you do not recharge it with spiritual energy, and if you do not put it to one side and invest in a more spiritual illusion instead, eventually that available energy runs out and cannot sustain you physically, and you reach a point where civilization collapses. You are about to reach such a point. You have few generations left in which to change your mind. And changing your mind in this case means changing your mind from the head mind to the heart mind. But the point of this book is that changing your mind is all it takes. You don't want the earth to be as it is at the moment? Then change your view. Change your mind. Switch from the head mind to the heart mind. Invest in the light that is your heritage and spread that light into the earth plane and into the heart minds of the people you love and the people you don't love. You wish there to be an end to war? Then stop creating wars. Stop investing in war. And the way to stop investing in war, investing in violence, investing in perversion, is to realize that all these things disappear at the moment you let go of your belief subconsciously that you were right at the point of the fall. And you will say, well, I don't understand. I wasn't there at the point of the fall. Yes, you were. It is why you are here. I never invested in an experiment that went wrong. Yes, you did. It is why you are here. I am frightened of letting go. Let go. Let go of your view of this earth as being something that will be exactly the same each morning when you wake up, that will follow the same pattern, that will follow your present expectations, that will be an earth with some joy in it, but quite a good deal of pain, that will have within it upsets in certain areas of the world, that will have within it family pain and personal pain, that will have within it illness because that's the way things are. Let go. That's the way things are until you decide there is a different way for things to be. That's all it takes to uninvest your belief in you being right at the point of the fall. That and to declare, it's time now. I have had enough. I am putting away this illusion. I am creating another one. In its simplest form, the remedy to your current predicament is simple. It is a matter of seeing the world you want and investing that vision of the world you want with light from the heart. Light that is brought in from beyond the confines of the field, beyond the confines of the fall, and beyond that expectation that everything will be all right because you have invested in a certain set of circumstances which you are going to present to your God and say, look what I have done, Father. Look what you have done. Look what you have done. Look what we all did. Look what I did. Look what the guides who come to you to try to open your spiritual eyes did. We are all part and parcel of the same experiment. We are all part and parcel of the same plan that went wrong. But if something goes wrong in life, if you are in a laboratory and you heat something up and it explodes, you take a broom and sweep up the pieces. You put the glass in a litter bin and you start a different experiment. You do not try and glue together the broken shards of glass into the receptacle it once was and maintain the same experiment so that it explodes again, and again, and again, and again. But that is what you are doing as a result of the fall. You are bringing yourself to extinction because it is your nature as an angelic being to start a cycle of creativity, to bring out of no thing something, to examine that something, and then to put away the something and create something else. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the experiment that went wrong, you cannot truly collapse the something, and you have invested so much of yourself in it that you believe you are a part of the something. So you take yourself to destruction time and again with the something that is merely an illusion. An illusion you could put away at any point by saying, I am greater than this. I can bring through something greater than this. I can change things. You can change things. There is still time, but not much time to reinvest this world with angelic light, with God light. By investing it with angelic light, you tear apart the thick skin of belief that surrounds the spiritual molecules that form this area of being and of illusion. You break away the heavy thinking that takes you back to the point of the fall, and instead you reinvest this illusion with the correct values of creation and destruction. In other words, you bring this whole area of experience back into harmony, and you reconcile this area of illusion with the rest of creation. And at that point, everything changes forever. Your eyes are opened, and you are illuminated once again from within and without, because the illusion will be of a spiritual quality rather than a distorted material quality. You speak very often about ascension, and about a sudden change that you expect to come. That change cannot come unless you change yourselves. There is no hand of God coming down to scoop you up and take you up to a higher level of consciousness. You have to scoop yourself up and take yourself up to a higher level of consciousness. You have to relinquish your belief in the experiment that went wrong that we call the fall. And until such time, no amount of hands reaching down from the spiritual realms will be able to elevate you. You have to elevate yourself. Listen to me. You have to elevate yourself. You have to reopen your angelic mind and your angelic heart. No one, not me, not the angelic host, not your God, can do it for you. At the point at which you decide to do it, yes, we can help. Yes, we can harmonize with you. We will harmonize with you from that point onwards, so your capability and your energy will join our capability and our energy. But until you open up your spiritual heart yourself, there is no illumination. There is no ascension. There are only the effects of the fall going on, and on, and on, and on. What you will probably find intriguing is that, at the point that eventually must come, when the effects of the fall are negated, the whole experience that you have embraced within the fall experiment for thousands and thousands and thousands of years will seem like the blink of an eye, as though you made a misstep in a dance but are now in harmony again. One step was a misstep, and the next is back into the harmony of the dance. But for you, invested in the effects of the fall, and for us, still emerging from the cleansing spheres, this is a very real experience. It is an experience that seems to be lasting, and lasting, and lasting, and lasting forever. But in effect, only you as an angel last forever. And this experience is one of many that you will be able to fold away and just draw on through your memory. This information has been given to the world before. This information always comes to the world at the point where things are at their grimmest. This information has been buried. This information has been diluted. This information has been perverted. Well, here it is again. And the reason it is here at this point in time is because you need now, more than ever in the last thousands of years, you need now to change your minds. You need now to do something. If I have made you afraid by this final chapter, I am happy. I need to make you afraid. I need to make you see that the view that you have through the filter of the fall is inadequate. That your world you rely on is not to be relied on. That the physical senses you rely on are not to be relied on. That your worldview is cloudy and distorted, and that there is something far better waiting for you the moment that you emerge from the mistake you have chosen to invest in. Not only that, but awaiting you outside of the effects of the fall is the rest of your family. You have small glimpses of the pleasure of family on the earth plane, when you can get past the sharp edges of personality you have solidified through the effects of the fall. and you have glimpses of how wonderful it can be to be part of a harmonic family. You have an infinite harmonic family waiting to welcome you back into their arms beyond the effects of the fall. A wonderful, wonderful, constantly blissful experience with no lack, no loss, and no grieving. You are constantly with them and they with you, not in a restrictive sense, but in the sense of totally, totally, totally belonging. That is waiting for you beyond the effects of the fall. You have the ability to create worlds. You have the ability to create any scenario that you can imagine. You bring it forth, you immerse yourself in it, you experience it, and you put it away again. Imagine that. Imagine how wonderful and glorious that is to be creatively free, to be able to create anything you desire for the sharing, the glorification, and the benefit of your angelic family and of your God. That is how you got into this mess, unfortunately, in the first place, by wanting to do that, but by believing that you could manipulate the basics, the building blocks of creation, in a different way to enhance the way that creation works. Are there questions?
I don't have any questions about this chapter, Joseph, and I'd just like to thank you for bringing the information through.
Joseph, the angelic hosts that are beyond the confines of the earth, you've mentioned that most of them have gone on and done their own thing, but occasionally they do pop in, as it were. Are they guiding you now?
They are guiding me, and they are guiding us because they are, to a greater degree, able to communicate with us consciously. As we climb the ladder of cleansing through the spiritual spheres, we become re-aware every day, as it were, of more potential. As we cleanse ourselves of the effects of the fall, in the degree that we do that, we restore our angelic memory, and, therefore, as a matter of course, are supplied with the potential of the whole, the memory of the whole, and the understanding of the whole. That lives with us at heart level constantly. But also there are times when we take ourselves, as the group soul that I am part of, into a wonderful amphitheatre or splendid arena. I wish I could show it to you. There, at a time when we are given a signal, we sit as family and as one to receive, in an individual form, a visit from one of the angelic host. You might think that we are great elevated beings, and we can understand why that would look to be the case to you, because by comparison, what we are capable of seems to be infinitely more evolved than what you are capable of. But when we sit and receive one of the angelic host, that remember we are part of, we are awed and we are humbled by the light, by the intention, by the love, and by the capability of that sweet soul in our midst. What you also have to understand is that that sweet soul is what we are, and that visitation is to bring encouragement, but also to show us what we are and where we are going. So, as we approach infinity, we do so without fear, because we can see, from the visitors who come to us, what lies ahead for us in terms of individual capability and form. There is no fear of stepping outside of the cleansing spheres. There is only a desire to one day express ourselves once again like the visitors that come to commune with us express themselves. As I said earlier in this final chapter, the whole process from you as an individual trapped in matter, to you as an individual moving through the cleansing spheres, to you emerging into infinity, is only the blink of an eye. Only the blink of an eye. But it does not seem to be so to you encased in matter, nor to us in the more evolved spheres of creation. So we commune with angelic messengers, and following the fall of civilization, there was a time when those angelic messengers were the only means of communicating with the souls that entered into stasis. You might think that we control the mechanics of the cleansing spheres, and we do to some extent, but they are under the greater control of our greater angelic family. And so, in that sense, we are always streaming and channeling the intents of the angelic host as they are beyond this tiny, tiny area of mistaken matter. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Is there anything else whilst we are communicating for this last time, for a while?
The revelation that seems the most surprising in the whole book is about the angelic being splitting into two halves, the positive and the negative. I just wondered what the spiritual science behind that was, and the reason why it had to split in two.
It is because you are expressing yourself through the filter of the fall. And in order to exist within this area where positive and negative have been disengaged from their original intent, you express yourself as one being through those divided channels for creation. It is an effect of the fall, and it is an effect of the redirecting of creative purpose. So, when you find yourself projected into the area of the fall, you are already a house divided. As you manifest on this level, you are already a divided consciousness, because you are part of your creation on a physical level. You are part of a creation that has been pulled apart and has been skewed. And so you are channeled in as an angelic being and are shoehorned into a physical body. But you are split in consciousness and purpose into two parts of that physical consciousness. Does that make it any easier to understand? It is a vast spiritual scientific topic, and we do not have the energy to deliver it as chapters. At some point we could, and at some point we hope to, but for now we have to bring together the two halves, the male and female, of this book in order that the basic message gets out there. What happens is that the individual angelic being is pulled down into the effects of its own creation and is literally pulled apart. Are you not at this time apart from your God? Do you not exist as an individualization and also as a part of God? But you are not conscious of being two halves, are you?
No.
And yet you are two halves in that respect. You are two halves. You are the Godhead that is you, and you are the individual that is you, that is also part of the Godhead. You are seeing in microcosm, in the area of the fall, what, in effect, your relationship with God is. The two creative forces of yourself, because of the effects of the fall, have to exist separately within the matrix that you have created. It is to do with spiritual physics. It is to do with the corruption of the way that creation works on this level. We have to envisage and foresee a time when there is a reunification, not only with the angelic host, but a reunification on earth of the two halves of each individual member of the angelic children at a time when the earth is Christed, at a time when the earth is reunited with the rest of creation. Do you see?
Yes, thank you.
Are you sure that you see?
I don't fully understand it.
What don't you understand?
I can understand that with the fall we made matter too positive, and then there was a surplus of negative left over, so that unbalanced things, and somehow, because we were part of our creation, we became unbalanced too, but no, I don't think I can understand it in the time we've left in this communication.
It is certainly a mystical aspect that I am asking you to take on faith. But you are used to looking at things with regard to physical matter and from the point of view of everything being hard, being a shell and being individual and isolated. I am talking about essence. Is it not true that you can be sitting in a room, for example, watching someone giving a lecture, but your mind is elsewhere? You are physically sitting in the room, but your mind is elsewhere, and you are going over the past, or the present, or the future, or talking to someone in your mind's eye. Are you capable of that?
Yes.
In being capable of that, at that point, there are two essences to you. There is the physical essence that is sitting there and still consciously listening to the lecture, and there is the spiritual essence that has decided to travel. I hope this gives you an idea of what I mean by essence. So the male and the female, or the two creative halves, if you like, of each angelic being, are an essence that is simply placed into two vessels. In the same way that you can place yourself in that lecture, and yet be outside of that lecture in your mind's eye, and have very real experiences away from that lecture, but still be sat in it listening to it. We are not dealing with physical matter. We are dealing with you as an angelic being. And as an angelic being, you have different facets. And those facets, normally, as part of the angelic host, operate together. They are regarded as separate facets, but they are together. On earth, because of the effects of the fall, those two essences are forced apart, in the way that you force yourselves apart from the rest of creation, and have to inhabit different physical vessels in order to project themselves into and exist within the area of the fall. That does not mean that there is a separation once you have elevated yourself beyond the effects of the fall. Once you have elevated yourself beyond the effects of the fall, there is a reunification. There is a reunification of you and the rest of the angelic host, but there is a reunification of those essences of yourself that you use in order to bring through creation. And not creation as you understand it here, in taking a screwdriver and some wood and putting things together. It is infinitely more satisfying, infinitely more exquisite and delicate creation you are capable of, but not here because of the fall. Does that help?
Yes, that does help a lot. Thank you.
Is there anything finally?
No, just to say thank you, Joseph.
Please, each of you listening to this book, ask for help. Ask for help in understanding the message that should strike a chord within you that has been set out in this book. But also ask for help in realizing your potential, in changing this world, in having the courage to change yourself and having the courage to let go. We are with you. Your own group soul members are with you. The angelic host is with you, channeled through us and also through yourself. You are a being of infinite, glorious possibility. You are a being of infinity. You just need to remember that. And as a being of infinity, as a being of glorious, infinite possibility, you create. You create worlds. You create solar systems. You create universes. You create glorious, glorious scenarios. And you can still do that now. You need to do that now to cleanse this region, to change this region, and to bring finally peace on earth forever and ever. Amen.